We're standing in front of the Mara River, which provides one of the only permanent water sources in the Serengeti Mara ecosystem. And the Mara flows from the Mau Forest in the highlands of Kenya down through the Masai Mara National Reserve in Kenya and the Serengeti National Park in Tanzania and into Lake Victoria, where it then forms the headwaters of the Nile River basin. Mara is an incredibly important river in this ecosystem. It provides a critical water source, particularly in the dry season, for millions of wildlife, as well as over 1 million people that live in the Mara River basin, many of whom rely on the river and its tributaries for their domestic water needs. The Mara is threatened, as many other systems are, by a lot of changes on land use. So when natural land cover is lost, either for agricultural development or for urban growth, less water is able to be stored in the landscape when it rains, which is normally what would then feed the river during the dry season. And so when we lose natural land cover, a lot of that water runs off downstream quickly, and we get high flows and low flows. When we protect natural land cover on the landscape, the Mara is able to kind of maintain healthy flows throughout the year, which follow a natural flow regime of having high flows during the wet season and low flows during the dry season. Rivers are really fascinating because they kind of provide like the blood vessels of the landscape, They integrate all the things that are happening on the watershed that drains into them. So if you just go to a river and take a water sample, you can learn a lot about what's happening across the watershed. The sediments that come in and are transported, even things like pollen from the different plants that come in the communities, come into the river and eventually are transported downstream. But rivers also provide a really important habitat for aquatic biodiversity, and the Mara has some really unique biodiversity. We have captured huge clarias, catfishes, green gold bagres catfishes, the elephant fish, which has a pink snout that it uses to find insects in the river and has a highly evolved electrosensory system. There are freshwater oysters that help filter the water and keep it clean, and large Nile crocodiles, of course, that are well documented and showing up at the wildebeest crossing points. The Mara is also unique because it's home to over 4,000 hippos, which provides one of the highest population densities of hippos left in Africa. And those hippos provide a really important role in the river system because they go into the grasslands at night and eat lots of savanna grass, but they spend their day resting in the river, wallowing in these pods and kind of excreting a lot of the grass that they consumed on land into the water. That provides nutrients that then fuels the base of the river food web. So we find that the insects and the fish that live in the river, almost 80% and sometimes of their body composition is made up of the carbon that came in from hippo dung, which is fascinating. So hippos really fertilize the river system. But also with all of that carbon coming into the system, it takes a lot of water to keep the river flowing and processing all of those nutrient inputs. And when the river starts to fall very low, that can start to get really concentrated and the oxygen levels in the river can start to fall, which is a problem for aquatic life that depends on the river. So the Mara River is a river where it's particularly important to kind of maintain healthy flow regimes in order to keep the river kind of flowing and healthy for the aquatic biodiversity and the terrestrial biodiversity.